Okay, welcome everybody to this evening's AUDJPY Securities webinar, Forex Trading and Live Market Analysis. My name is Duncan Cooper. If you could read through the disclaimer, that would be great. Any questions to the question box or the chat box? If you're on our YouTube live stream, I can't see the chat, so you're more than welcome to watch. Or you can join us with the link that I've given you, and then you can ask questions. So please read through the disclaimer. All right, moving along. So if you don't know me, my name is Duncan Cooper. I'm a Senior Market Strategist and Trading Mentor at AUDJPY Securities. And I'm a full-time trader. I've been trading the Forex market now for more than 15 years, mentoring clients more than 10. If you want to contact me, my email is on screen, duncan.cooper@audy.com. If you want to connect with me through the week at our website, audy.com, Market News tab, you'll find my analysis there, as well on YouTube, AUDJPY Securities Australia. And you can connect with me on my own handles there as well if you want to, on Twitter and LinkedIn. As well through the week, if you haven't, you can get access to our Twitter channel. So if you'd like to get access to that and get access to my chart layouts and templates, the ones I'm using in the webinar tonight, then just contact Nathan Bray at ACY. I'll put his details in the chat right now. Or if you've got any questions about maybe opening an account, just have a chat with Nathan. All right, so just putting his details in the chat. There we go. All right, so let's just have a look at what news is coming out over the next couple of days before we get into the charts. Just refresh this. All right, so we do have some US news and Canadian news coming out at 11:30 p.m. tonight. On the US side, Empire State Manufacturing Index, and we have CPI data coming out for Canada, so that's the kind of inflation rate. So the year on year saying it's going to drop down from 5.3. Well, I've got median and trim, not quite sure what the exact difference is, but I'm sure the trimmed has some aggregation and something cut out of it. But they're expecting a slight drop, whichever one you want to look at for inflation there. All right, so Canadian dollar will be very volatile at time I'm sure, 11:30, and we also have the US Empire State Manufacturing. Thing to note tomorrow, for the yen pairs, we have the Japanese outlook report, monetary policy statement. Last time that came out, we had like a 500 pip move. The Bank of Japan decided to change how interest rates were on, I think, the 10-year bonds. So we had to increase it from, I think, 0.25 to 0.5%. So they could come out with some more information about the fact that they might want to do some more raising of interest rates. So be very aware of that tomorrow. It's tomorrow afternoon sometime, my time, Queensland time. They never give the time, it's sometime in the afternoon. All right, then, yes, tomorrow evening, 11:30 p.m., we've got the core PPI, retail sales, PPI and retail sales data coming out for the US. So that will be volatile there as well. So a few items coming out to be aware of. All right, let's get to the charts. Let's use my price action charts now. After the CPI data last week from the US, we definitely had a sell-off on the yen pairs and a bit of movement back up from that sell-off at the moment, but we'll just have a look at the dollar index first of all. And let's get rid of that now. I know we're having probably 4 negative months now, but the trend doesn't change on the dollar index on the long-term look. Still got higher tops and bottoms. Now, if we have changed trend up here, the monthly trend may not be able to tell you that in the very short term. Now, we are below support at the moment, 103.82. Now on my weekly chart, what I'm doing here is I'm just monitoring last year's trading range. And this is it. That's the low of last year, that's the high of last year, and we're sitting at or around the 62% retracement. Now, I don't know whether the market will put a bottom in there. You can see there we have a lower top, lower bottom still on the index. But if we were able to start to show some form of advance from that area, that may be a bottom coming in. Can we get back above 103.82, and can we actually break above the lower top there on the weekly? Now, of course, we can just continue moving down, but I'm looking at the highest structure for the whole year, 62% retracement of the yearly range. We've already seen on the pound dollar and the New Zealand dollar, and I'll touch on those tonight. We've already failed at 62% retracement levels of the pound dollar and the New Zealand dollar already, and they've already moved down. So they could be leading the index. This has moved down because the euro dollar has been moving up still to a new high, and the dollar index is made up of more than 50% weight based on the euro. So that's why this is down where it is. So the day chart will just show you that we're still in a downtrend. So, if we start to see an uptrend form here, we at the 62% level, we may well see all the pairs to the US dollar, yes, getting ready to move down, but this most immediate weekly downtrend and the day downtrend hasn't broken there on the index. And the S&P 500, it's a little bit mixed. If you go to the weekly chart here, we have a lower top, higher bottom. And we're stuck between what is monthly resistance and monthly support. So a little bit range bound here. I mean, are we going to put in a lower top here, or are we putting in a higher bottom to move up to a higher top? Who knows? And what I can see here from my balling the day chart is that we're at a 62% retracement of that drop. So are we rallying back up to the 62 here to then turn down to put in a lower top here on the weekly chart to move down? So at the moment, there's a slight positivity to the stock market, weakness to the dollar. That wouldn't surprise me to see that top out there to move down and put a lower top in. All right, I might just have a quick click through. I don't think anything's really imminent. I go to the New Zealand dollar first of all. All right, so I'm looking at this New Zealand dollar. I did a video on it today. That from the weekly chart perspective, that we've false broke this top. And let me get rid of that fib for a moment. As I was saying about the 62% retracement of the yearly range. We failed at 62 there on the yearly range for the New Zealand dollar, coincided with a false break of that weekly top. I'm looking at this movement up to be forming a lower top somewhere here on the weekly. I'm looking at that to be a final top, coming up to form a lower top to move down. And now I know that's a higher top and that's a higher bottom, but I'm looking at where we're failing at in relation to last year's trading. All right, now at the moment, the day trend is up, but I'm also monitoring now this whole range. And we just keep testing. We're fraction above the 62 level at the moment. We keep testing the 62 levels, 63.90, and around about the 6400 level. You can see we're positive on the day at the moment. Now, yes, of course, we could move up. You can see here, yesterday we failed at last week's high. So anywhere near last week's high is a very difficult area for this pair at the moment. So I would be monitoring at the moment. There's yesterday's range where we sold down. Just stubbing into the 79, close to last week. So this is the area where we could fail today to move down. So you're looking for a trend line break. It's stubbing up to the high of Friday here. There's Monday's high. All right, so up here in this area is where you're going to find the sellers. See how we're just coming up to fill this imbalance up here? All right, so we had a drop in balance yesterday. We've just come up and filled it. Is at the top of the day. What do we think? All right, for me, that's an area to look for an opportunity to sell on whatever your setup is. So you can monitor that through the day. Just have a look at the euro dollar. All right, nothing happening on that. I just want to see if there's anything happening on any pairs that we can just jump straight in on. All right, I might actually go to the euro yen, because what I was noticing on that pair before I came on board was, just have a look. All right. So I put this out earlier in the day that 138.78 here, this is the day chart, could be the low of the day, support for the day. And Lucas is telling me you're bullish on the New Zealand dollar going to 65.76. Well, it could. We do have a higher bottom on the weekly chart, but I'm just looking at where I think it's fading out long term, and that's at the 62% retracement of the monthly range. Now you're saying this could go to, let's have a look. You're saying 65.76. All right, so you look 65. So you're looking a movement above this area. All right. $65.76. So you're looking up over here. I mean, from a weekly perspective, if this is a higher bottom and the trend of the weekly chart is going to hold, then we could be well going up to 79% retracement up here. But 65.76, what's that top here? So you're looking at this top over here. Well, I mean, if the uptrend holds, then yes, that is a target for sure. You've got monthly resistance here at 65.27, which we've fallen short of at the moment. And we false broke this weekly top here. So we have to get past 64.68 with some conviction at the moment. So if we can't, then that might not be a target that can be achievable. So we do have to start to see some clear pressure moving up there. I'm not sure if we can get up there myself personally. So we had a rejection candle yesterday. So what I am looking at is putting a fib across that rejection candle. And that's how I'm coming out with that 79% level up here with last week's high, with the filling of that imbalance there, okay? All right, I'm gonna go into the euro yen. So euro yen today has put a low in on day support. We were below that Friday, Monday, reversing back above. I'm looking at this as could move up to, back up to weekly support here if it wants to. And at the moment, the 4-hour trend is up here. We have a higher bottom to a top. And what I noticed before I was coming on, that range that we formed today, that higher bottom to a higher top, we're pulling back to the 62% level. And we could well have a continuation up now to the 127 extension, keeping that 4-hour uptrend in play. If we obviously break below this low here, the 4-hour low, that's going to change that 4-hour structure back to down. But at the moment, 4-hour structure is starting to form to the upside. As I'm talking, price is wanting to tick up. So that could be where we get an intraday bottom at the moment. All right. Now, what I'm anticipating on the euro yen is, from the weekly perspective, we had a very negative week last week, so we may well fall through to the downside, but we're just upticking at the moment. And just pausing because I've got lots of things coming in the chat. And Luke, you're saying lower than expected pays on the US dollar last week. We did have an increase of jobs, but decrease of minimum wage. Well, I mean, that could flow through to a weaker US dollar continually, but I did notice on the 10-year yields, let's just have a look at, what is affecting the strength of the US dollar. If you go to trading view, you can have a look at the 10-year bonds and the 2-year bonds. This is the 10 at the moment. We're getting a bit of a reversal at support here. So if that keeps moving up, that's 10-year bonds, and this is the 2-year bonds. Then, we could be on support here at the moment, and we may well see those moving up. So if they start to move up, so the yield is moving up, then the US dollar is going to pop up and the pairs to the US dollar are going to pop down. All right, so it's worth watching those. So you can see here last 3 days, positive 3 days for the 10s. All right. All right, so on the euro yen, on a bigger perspective for the rest of the week, we had a very negative week last week. We could follow through to the downside. What we're seeing at the moment is a bit of an uptick. So we're trading back inside the range of last week. So what I'm going to be monitoring is the range of last week. And I can see the 62% level lines up nicely with 4-hour old support, lines up with 141.04, which is actually monthly resistance if you go to your monthly chart. And we've got daily and weekly resistance in there too. So there's a whole band of, go to my daily chart just to show you. There's a whole area of resistance here that the market could respect if we rally back up. As I said before, we've got the Bank of Japan's report coming out tomorrow. So where will it be after that? It comes up after that through the week up to here. That's an area I'm going to be watching to trade down from. All right. So look at the euro dollar. So last 2 trading days, you can see negativity up there in the last 2 trading days were very much overextended. All right. And Luke, you're saying the flows are getting out of the US dollar into the euro, at least for options ending 1Q23. I'll have to take your word for that because I don't look at the options. But we can see here the euro dollar is to a new high. So it is a lot stronger than the New Zealand dollar, the first pair I just discussed, versus the US dollar. And it's just coming up just short of 108.79 is, if you go to your monthly chart, it's coming up to this old low over here. That could be resistance. All right. Weekly trend is up. Day trend is up. This to me at the moment is just overextended. And look, you're telling me we might get to 110 by the end of the month. Well, we could. So at the moment, this isn't an uptrend. I'm not really looking to short it at the moment. For me to start shorting this, this weekly top here at 107.36, price needs to move back below there. So these 2 negative days at the moment could just be profit taking to want to pull back. But if we do start to move back below that weekly top, then it does look a lot weaker. So overall, to the weekly chart here, we're in between the 62% to 79% of last year's trading range, okay? So we are in an area where the market could maybe want to top out, put a top in for the year. We'll have to wait and see. So might get a day or 2 down on the euro dollar. So to the 4-hour chart, if you're looking to trade it to the downside, I would still want to look at last week's high. See how we failed at last week's high yesterday. I'm going to talk about last week's highs and lows tomorrow in the education webinar. Can we come back up and retest that level? So you got last week's high at 108.67 and a monthly resistance at 108.79. Up there, you can see it's heavy going because we failed up there twice. So getting back up there and failing once more might offer you an opportunity to trade down for a couple of days. But as I said, the key level I'm watching is 107.36. If we do pull back, that should be support. So we can pull back, watch 107.36. That should be support to hold the market. Was weekly resistance, now should be weekly support. If we can't hold that level on a pullback, then we could be moving down further. There is a number of, there's an imbalance here. If you've been in my lesson on imbalances, then imbalances are often filled. So we haven't filled this one here yet. So maybe we draw a fib across that range there. All right, filling that imbalance gets us down to the 79% retracement level down here. So just be aware of that imbalance. If we start to break below weekly support, we could be heading down there. But in the short term, I'll be watching 107.36 for support and then look for an opportunity to trade to the upside. At the moment, you can see last half a dozen 4-hour candles. There's not a lot going on there at the moment. Right, Slav here saying, I think someone from the ECB said that interest rates are on the cards. If that happens, euro will likely go down. Well, it depends. It all depends what the US does in its interest rates, and the euro side does its interest rates, how the differential as well. Does the differential between the two countries widen or narrow? And the longer term outlook for raising as well will have an impact on that. So at the moment, we are a bit flat here. I think it's overextended and may need a pullback, but I'll be watching 107.36 to be critical support. Or I'm going to head over to the Aussie yen. Now, Aussie yen, if you go to your weekly chart, we've held at this bottom over here. Is this going to be a long-term level of support? So we've actually had a bounce there, but we're actually getting, we're getting held at resistance and support. We're just bouncing up to resistance to hold, to move down, to test this level once more and move down and through. Overall, there you can see on the weekly chart, we have a lower top to a lower bottom. On the day chart here, we're actually seeing an uptrend in terms of its structure from a higher top up here, higher bottom. Is this another higher bottom forming? We're quite clearly up here at this is daily resistance, weekly resistance, monthly resistance. There's this broad resistance area, much like the euro yen, where we've sold down from last week. So a heavy sell-off Thursday, Friday. I'll be looking in that area if we can pop back up this week for the opportunity maybe to trade down. I know this is a higher top, higher bottom, but two very strong sell-off days there, Thursday, Friday. So for our chart, if we monitor the range of last week, 62 level is at 90.59, 79 levels at 91.13. Daily resistance is at 9100. My perfect level, if we could get up, would be up at the 79% level. Got all this resistance over here too, where we've been holding. So 9100, 91 up to 91.13, that area up there would be a great area to look for a short if we can get up there. So at the moment, though, structure here on the 4-hour chart, it's claiming back some of Fridays and Thursdays selling. 4-hour trend is kind of holding itself. If you want to trade within that trend that's developing, just like I showed you, this is the 4-hour low up to the 4-hour high, like I showed you on the euro yen. We've just pulled back to 79, heading up. Are we going to see now an upward move today up towards that 4-hour 127 extension, which coincides with 90? Okay, that might be where the roadmap for the day is. All right, Aussie dollar. I've got lots of lines here, but the overall trend here on the monthly is down. This is just corrective at the moment. We're heading into, or trading at pretty much 69.67. You've got monthly resistance here. Okay. That's the range for last year. So we haven't been able to get up to the 62 level just yet. Maybe we can't get up to the 62 level. Maybe we're holding within this range here from that high. to that low. Within that range, we're fractionally above at the moment, 79% retracement. You can see there, monthly resistance is there at 69.67. Yesterday, we put in a nice reversal day. They didn't like it. Tried to have a strong push above 70 yesterday, but then ultimately couldn't hold that area. And came up and tested this 70.09 day resistance level. So it is a nice area for a top to come in, but this is still structurally in an uptrend. 4 hours still in an uptrend here too. It's just holding an uptrend, but I would be watching back up where we failed yesterday. Whilst that's a higher bottom, I'm drawing a fib from that high to low. I'm looking at the fact that we've had a rejection candle yesterday, so I'm just measuring that range of yesterday's rejection. All right, so to the 15-minute chart, there's yesterday's rejection. I put out this in Telegram earlier in the day. Looking up here at 70 up to 70.02. Yes, it could come back up to 70.09. Can we get up there maybe after the US news comes out? If that's US dollar negative, then we might see an uptick back up into that high area. All right. At the moment, though, it's not really wanting to get above the central pivot point, so maybe it can't get up there today. Maybe it's starting to hold at monthly resistance at 69.67. So over the next 24 hours, I'm going to be watching to see if we can get up to here. If we can't, then what we might see today is we might break down today. All right, but then tomorrow we could come back up and revisit 69.67. That would be, you know, can we come up and retest and fail at that monthly resistance? Today we're kind of holding there. I don't like all this choppy price action at the moment. So what I would like to see is this drop down and then want to come up and have a rally at a known level of resistance. All right. So at the moment, I'm looking at the high level up here. If we can get up there after the news. If we drop down today, then I'll be looking at 69.67 for a rally, maybe the day after. All right, of course, we can keep moving up. The day trend is still up, but we did have a nice rejection yesterday. So with that, we might see at least a movement down. Failing at 70, we could, you know, tick down to 69, tick down to 68. 70 might be the top for the year, who knows? Well, we are very much high up. I'll just get rid of that fib for a moment. We're very much high up within the range at the moment, within this range. There's lots of monthly resistance, there's weekly resistance here too. And you know, there's this resistance over here. So historical levels that the market's formed before. There's lots of reasons why that could just be the area where we top out at. So if it does offer you a very good risk reward entry, it gives another rally back up to the 70 level or close to, that could be a good level to watch for an opportunity. All right, so I'm watching for a move up to that area up there. Might not give it to me, but I'm watching that area at the moment. All right, euro yen, we've covered that. Euro dollar, we've covered that one. Bit quiet going on that pair at the moment. Pound yen, there is the potential. Now, who was telling me about head and shoulders? Edwin, head and shoulder forming on the pound dollar, he was saying. Well, on this pound yen, there is the potential of a large left shoulder, head, right shoulder here. When we get to the dollar yen later on, we're at the 62% retracement of the yearly range for the dollar yen as well. So if that dollar index starts getting support and the dollar yen starts getting support and wanting to start to move up again like last year, then, you know, as well as that being maybe a major right shoulder, we're in between the 62.79% retracement. So that was the big move up from the pound sell-off back up. Back down here. So the monthly chart, look, that's the structure. It's up to a higher top, or this could be a higher bottom forming it in this area. Whilst this is the weekly chart. That is a monthly low there. This could well be a monthly low in here. Is this going to be a long-term low area? All right, we're already having a reversal, putting in a higher bottom at the moment. So it needs to contend with 158.21 is a long-term monthly top that we've been above and below. So we could stop there. More recently, daily resistance here at 158.56. So if you're looking to get long this pair, that's the barrier for the upward move. 158.21 to 158.58 in there is a resistance zone just there. We can move through there, then we might get the impetus to start moving back up. 163.03 is weekly resistance up here from that low there. All right, so it's not quite holding to its downtrend now. It has been lower tops and bottoms, but it's putting a higher bottom in at the moment. So is that the signal for a long-term move up? For our trend is starting to structurally form there. All right. So there's the barrier, 158.21, 158.58. If we move above there, for sure, if you're already long, as long as you move through there, you're good. If you can't move through there, of course, you need to start to make profits on your trade. And if we start to hold here, this could be the opportunity where you look for your short back down, all right, in that area. But it does look very nice, that potential left shoulder, head, right shoulder there. All right, just checking my messages. And Edwin, you're talking about head and shoulders on the pound dollar. So there's an inverse one on the pound yen, and on the pound dollar, are you looking at, so you're looking for a head and shoulders to the downside on the pound? So you're looking at up here. Yeah. Yep. I mean, we could get up there. My weekend commentary, talking about levels on the weekend. I say we might just come up to this weekly top here, hold and fail, which we got about 3 pips short of it yesterday and failed. So, all right. So on the weekly, that's the last year's range. I've discussed it countless times. There's a 62% level of last year's range. Is that the final top for a long-term move? Then I'm looking at this at the moment as the final top, just because of where that top's come in. We've obviously had a drop this, so this looks very similar to the New Zealand dollar. Yes, that's the higher top. Yes, that's the higher bottom. Yes, we can move straight through there. It's just a price level on the chart, 62% level of a major range. Are we coming up here to put in a lower top on the weekly? So Edwin, you're looking up here at 123.45. I've actually been looking over here at that weekly level here at 122.93 to top out this week. So let's just draw a fib in across that range. Just drop it down to 4 hours. So we're just in between the 62.79 at the moment. So your level is 123.45. My level is 122.93 that I'm looking at. The market might fail there. I've been picking that one because, well, it's a weekly level, plus there's this imbalance here that has now been filled. So that's why I was picking that area. So you can see we pretty much filled it yesterday. So if I just draw that exactly right, the imbalance is more there. That was on that time frame. So we came up to fill it, and then we sold off yesterday. Now, structurally here on the 4-hour chart, we are still holding an uptrend. So this could still get up to that higher level. So yes, watching the higher levels, potential failure. So I would go from weekly resistance. I know you're watching 23.45, but I would probably go there. I, of course, know that 123.45 is up there, but up there for a failure. And we don't have to trade it at the area. We can wait for 4-hour structure to change the downside. So maybe we come up to the area if we can get up there. And then we wait for it for a break of trend on the 4-hour. And then, you know, you look to sell the rally for a lower top on the 4-hour. All right. But whether or not we can get that high, what, you know, we actually, there's last week's high. See how we failed? We came up, folks, broke. We may only come up to last week's high. We may need to draw a fib just across this range. I know it's a higher bottom, but 62 level, it's very close to the last week's high. All right, so that's a lower level that you can be watching today. Do we come up into that area hold? Coincides with Friday's high over there. Do have a little bit of an imbalance to fill from yesterday's trading, which is just in here. All right, and which coincides with that area there. All right, so that looks like a nice, that does look like a nice area. Whether or not we can get up there, you can see the last, what, half a dozen candles can't get above the central pivot point. You know, like I was discussing, I'd like the Aussie to get up higher. It can't get above the central pivot point today either. All right, so maybe we can't get above the central pivot point. Maybe we can't get to a higher level, which is always the better option to do, try to sell down from a higher level. So levels to watch there on the pound dollar. New Zealand yen, it's still remaining very much range bound. Here's that weekly range. Do note that that is a higher top, and we could, you know, in terms of the bigger structure, moved up to a fractional higher point there. This is a higher bottom here to that bottom. So is it just creeping up? So we are reversing from down here. Supports, day support there. I'll still be monitoring. We've got the Bank of Japan coming out tomorrow. That's the range of last week. We may just be coming up within the range of last week. 79% level overlaps with 83.84. 83.84 is that low there, which I think is a weekly low. So, you know, if we do come up, at the moment we've got a lower top, higher bottom, so it's getting a bit mixed. But the thing that's going to stop it going up would be that area there. But if I had a choice, I would probably say that this might be support down here. All right, a lot of these, nearly all the yen pairs have come down to a level of support, good support. So if they're all getting good support and the dollar yen moves up, we could then be moving up back up to the higher levels of resistance on these yen pairs. So yes, two good sell-off days, Thursday, Friday last week, but just down to support. We couldn't follow through Monday. So yes, I'm monitoring the ranges of last week, but we may have bottomed out down at these lower levels. You know, if we start to see on any of these yen pairs, a move back down and a hold on support or a false break of support, then, you know, look for the reversal back up. All right. All right, so we'll have to wait and see what the Bank of Japan brings tomorrow. Of course, if they do something like they did last time, we might drop another 500 pips, but once they say something, it'll just drop it and you won't be able to do anything about it. So we'll just have to monitor where price will be after their statement tomorrow. All right, New Zealand dollar, I've covered that one. The area that I've highlighted, you can see we've tagged it twice and rejected down. So sellers are clearly up there. All right, I'm most definitely on the side of this topping out and moving down. And as I was saying before, number of these pairs, now I could be completely wrong, but a number of these pairs, and this is one example, has tested and failed at its 62% level of last year's range. And if we're seeing a number of pairs fail. That this could be the high point for the next major move down. Okay, if we move above this top, then I'm wrong. All right, at the moment though, it's really struggling up there. See it rejecting once more up at last week's high. All right. So we revisit that on Thursday. See where it is. Dollar Canadian. As I was saying last week, my commentary is not going to change much. We have a higher bottom and we have a lower top. And we're kind of almost sitting right in the middle of it. So what are we going up? Or are we going down? Well, of course, we've got the CPI dollar coming out tonight. So that might awaken the direction. Right, so the day chart at the moment, large resistance across here from the day perspective, that daily low, where we were holding for a while and broke below. And almost we're in the middle of that range as well. So it is very much range bound. That's that weekly top. That's that weekly low. If we draw the fib that way, you're going to see that we've had a 79% retracement. So maybe we're bottoming there for a move that way. All right, as I said, on the US dollar index, we're at 62% retracement last year's range. So if that's going to get support, then move up, that is going to offer support here for the dollar Canadian to move up. If we break above that high today, that's going to put that day chart back into an uptrend. All right, and then you're looking for the upside. All right, four-hour structures turning up. Bit of a, not a perfect head and shoulder pattern by any stretch of the imagination, but a left shoulder, head, right shoulder kind of formation there. This looks like it's bottoming out down here to move up. All right. Now, of course, we've got the CPI data coming out later, so I can't give you any kind of setup at the moment because I don't know where price will be when that comes out. But back to the daily. To me, this looks very much like we could be holding here at 79 for a move up. All right. Dollar yen. Let's have a look at the monthly. Let's go through all the time frames on this one. Now we have broken below this low. My indicator here that shows the major highs and lows. That was of some. That was a monthly low there of some support. But the bigger range is that higher bottom to top. And we're not quite at the 62 level just yet, but it does overlap nicely with that monthly top there. So maybe we're coming down to the 125.85 area, potentially, if it keeps wanting to move down. The other range that I'm monitoring is just the yearly range. It's very similar to the dollar index. So last year's bottom came in. That was last year's low was there. All right, that was last year's high up there. So as you see, we're at the 62% of the yearly range, exactly like the dollar index. Inverse look of what I've been showing on the pound dollar, the New Zealand dollar. All right. So yes, this weekly trend's down, but it is in an area where we could get support. And the day trend at the moment is down. I was starting to think we were forming a double bottom along this level of support through here, but clearly now we've broken below. So at the moment, yes, we're down. That trend's going to hold down. I would be looking at 130.40 to be resistance. If we move back above 130.40, we could be bottoming out. Okay. So there's 130.40, just above it is last month's low as well. So that would be the area. That would be the area to look for your selling opportunity. There's last week's range. And then we just dropped slightly down yesterday. So the 62 is at 130.71. It's very close to last month's low. What was weekly support as well. So that whole if I can go hold of my little color portion, that whole area just in here is where we might retrace back to. So if we're going to continue down, to me, in my mind, that's where we should hold. 62% of last week's range, last month's low, weekly resistance. All right. We might not get up there, but that would be the area we'll be watching for a rally and then a fail. All right. If we move above that level, then for me, then we're looking at this area to become support on a pullback. All right. It should not move above that level if we're going to continue down. Now, if we look at the day chart, let's just go to the day chart. There's a number of imbalances on the day chart with this movement down that could well get filled or need to be filled. There's still an imbalance in here. There's a very large imbalance here. All right, so if we do bottom out here, then if you want to take a positional play, if we start to see an uptrend forming on the day chart, you know, there is this imbalance up here that could well be targeted through the course of the year. All right. Don't forget, I know we're selling off because the whole market thinks, okay, interest rates aren't going to be rising so much in the US anymore, but the interest rate differential is in favor of the US dollar to the yen, isn't it? So this can only go down so far before people are going to go, okay, where's the next carry trade? What level am I looking for my carry trade? Because the interest rate differential favors the dollar to the yen. You know, the US is not going to be dropping its interest rates, maybe just raising them at a lesser rate. So that interest rate differential is still there. All right, so I'm expecting a bottom to come in somewhere before a move back up this year. Maybe we're going to feel these imbalances, but obviously at the moment we are still in a downtrend. All right, so can we come up to this area? 130.40 up to 130.71. So that 4-hour trend at the moment, if you want to trade it up, the 4-hour trend is up here, making a high top and bottom now, and it's been looking very much like the Aussie yen and the Euro yen in that it's retraced. There's the high and low on the 4-hour. We've traced the 79% level. We're getting support there. We could be moving up today towards a continuation pattern, moving up towards 129.41. Okay. All right, that's the dollar yen. And let's have a look at gold just to finish off. Slav, are you trade gold? Are you trading this at the moment? We're at a very good level. We're at a major level of major monthly resistance over here. So we're at a very historical level. There's one level there. There's another level there, 1916, and that one is 1920. Is this where we put in like a head and shoulder pattern? All right. Of course, well, your monthly trend is down there. All right. Your weekly trend is up. So is this just complete corrective to come up to put in a lower top? So, I mean, we are reversing, but there's nothing, the weekly chart's not shouting out anything at the moment. The day chart, 2 negative days at the moment. This is obviously high tops and bottoms. So we need some maybe structure to show us that it wants to fail, where it's failing at the moment. The 4-hour, your 4-hour trend has turned down. So you could be looking to execute the 4-hour structure, which is down. And, you know, is that a major top up there? What are our thoughts? Last week's range, and then we've just broken up. So there's the range of last week with the move up to that fresh high. If the uptrend is going to hold, then we could pull back to that 79% level, back to 1877 supports. So that consolidation before we broke higher. So that would be an area to watch to be a buyer. Any revisit into that area and failure to me would be a clear shout out to look to sell down from that major area. All right, so you could look for a retest of 1920 and failure. We may have already failed. The last little blip up here, didn't want to get up to retest it, but the news might drive it up there when a news item comes out. So further retest and failure at 1920 would be obviously where to look to initiate sell. And on the buy side down here at 1877 support with a 79% fib level there. All right, so for your gold buffs, are we topping out up there? Now, if we do top out up here and get a nice heavy sell-off, that most definitely is going to help that Aussie dollar move down. And as well, if the S&P 500 is flying at the 62% level here, so just back to the weekly chart. If that's the final top, come down to a bottom to come up to put in a lower top, if that starts to move down as well, that's going to help the Aussie dollar move down. So has the Aussie dollar actually topped out at the 70 area? You know, if we start to see S&P 500 moving down, gold moving down, then we could have well have topped out on the Aussie. All right, so we'll just have to wait and see what the news brings over the next by the time I come back on Thursday with a live analysis, we will have already had this US news come out. All right, so tomorrow afternoon, we got the yen news. This evening, Empire State Manufacturing Index for the US and Canada CPI. All right, so just be aware of all those items coming out. As I was talking to you before, if the yields start ticking up on the bonds, 10-year bonds here is ticking up, didn't want to move below this level here at the moment. And the twos didn't want to, well, I tried to move below, but then held. So are we at the lower end now of where we've been pulling back to? And are we going to start to see yields pick back up? We start to see yields pick back up, we're going to start to see the dollar index move up. We're going to start to see pairs to the US dollar move down. So it's worth keeping your eye on what is happening on the 10s and the 2s. So have a look at that on a weekly chart. So we are in an area of, I know we haven't dropped down to that level, but that's the level where we spiked up through. And then we have that top there. So other 10-year bonds, they're putting in a double bottom on what is weekly supports. So monitor that, because if that starts moving up, pairs to the US dollar are going to start to move down. All right, so if the day continues, that's 3 positive days in a row. So we'll see where that sits on Thursday. All right, any more questions? I'm just going to go through my chat. I may have missed something. Let me just read through. I think I've covered everything. All right, any final questions before we go? Coming up tomorrow, we do have, get my webinar page up. Tomorrow, I'm going to go through the weekly highs and lows and the monthly highs and lows. I have touched on some weekly highs and lows on some of the pairs tonight. Number of pairs folks broke their highs yesterday. Is you often see nice trading opportunities around the weekly highs and the weekly lows, monthly highs, monthly lows. So that is coming up tomorrow, 8 p.m. Sydney time. More analysis on Thursday. That's what's coming up for this week. So if you've got the time, just come over and register your interest, and I look forward to seeing you then. And it doesn't look like there's any more questions. So thanks very much, everybody. Hopefully you got some value from that, some levels you can be watching over the next few days. Are a few risk events. Next big risk event was most definitely the Japanese information coming out tomorrow afternoon at some point. Do they remain the same status quo, or do they further discuss the fact that there's a bit of inflation there in Japan now, and are they going to be jawboning, to drive, to strengthen the yen from such high levels that we've been at? And then, yes, tomorrow evening, we've got the US news coming out. After that, there is not much for the rest of the week. So there's only really into tonight and into tomorrow where all the news is coming out, where we could get the driver for price action. All right, everybody, thanks very much. Look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great